our recording now. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So good morning, everybody. My name is Kendall Scott. I am the Outdoor Education Lead for the Nevada Division of Outdoor Recreation, and I manage the Nevada Outdoor Education and Recreation Grant Program, which is what you all are here today to learn a little bit more about. So to start off, I want to introduce the Nevada Division of Outdoor Recreation. For those of you who may not be familiar, we are one of 8 divisions within the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources at the state of Nevada. And our mission is to advance and promote sustainable world-class outdoor recreation opportunities throughout Nevada. We do that through various programs and a lot of technical assistance. We work a lot with communities and organizations and other government entities to make outdoor recreation and outdoor education a bit more accessible to Nevadans. So that's a little bit about us. We're a fairly new organization. We're created by the legislature in 2019, and we're just a staff of 1 for a couple of years, and now we're up to about 4.5 staff. And we also oversee the OHV, off-highway vehicles program, which is a staff of 2. So small team, making a large impact. One of our premier, I like to think, programs is the Nevada Outdoor Education and Recreation Grant Program. You'll probably hear me refer to it throughout the presentation as NOER. That's the acronym NOER. So the NOER grant was created in 2019 as well by the legislature. However, it did not receive funding until 2023 for the first time. And so this is our 3rd round we're going into now. These applications will be for the 3rd round of funding. So we are going to just take a quick overview of the grant program today. We're going to dive into what applications look like, what the requirements for applications are, and also a little bit of gain a little bit of understanding of what it might be like if you receive an award and what kind of the expectations are there, just to make sure that it's a good potential fit for your programs. So the NOER grant's purpose is to provide high-quality outdoor education and recreation opportunities for Nevada students facing barriers to outdoor access. And we're looking specifically for programs that get kids outside. So if your program does not have an outdoor component, I'm sorry, it does not qualify for this program. The programs do not have to exclusively be outside. There can be some indoor and outdoor components, but there does have to be at least some outdoor programming taking place. Our goals are to provide Nevada students with high quality opportunities, again, directly experiencing the natural world, being outside, help them to learn about agriculture and natural resources and promote environmental literacy. And we also seek to improve some impacts like academic performance, self-esteem, personal responsibility, community involvement, personal health, and understanding of nature. All right. So a little bit about funding. So like I said, this is going to be the 3rd round of grant funding for this program. We got $250,000 for 2024 projects and another $250,000 for 2025 projects. And then the legislature just earlier this year allocated another $500,000 over the next 2 years. So we are currently in fiscal year 2026 for the state. That started July 1. And so we've got another $250,000 approximately to hand out for this grant round for this application period. There may be a little bit more than that because there's been some funds left behind by past grantees, but about $250,000 is what we're going to be able to hand out this time as well, and as well as next year. All right, so I want to first point out the website is live and has all of the information that you're going to need, all the documents you're going to need for applications. So this is kind of what the landing page looks like. I'm actually going to stop sharing the presentation real quick and instead take you over to the website here. So this is at endor.nv.gov/NOER-grants. Hopefully you all found that since you found the webinar link. And the NOER page should have everything that you're going to need there. The first thing you're going to want to find is the grant manual. It's highlighted all over this page. It's right here at the top. The grant manual should be your North Star for when you're preparing your application. It should have all the information that you need in there. I'm of course available for questions if you can't find something within the manual, but I really highly suggest that everybody read through the manual in its entirety. It's not too long. It's about 10 to 12 pages, and it is going to provide you with a lot of good context information. There are some on the webpage. You can look at past NOER award summaries, so you can see what projects were funded in 2024 and 2025. Sometimes that can help you get an understanding of the types of projects that we're looking for. We also got this really cool new dashboard where you can see a map across Nevada of where all of the programs are taking place, and the 2024 impact report, which outlines the outcomes that we have from our first round of grant funding in 2024, how many kids we got outside, how many hours they spent outside, that sort of thing. There's some articles here that mention NOER in the news, and then these quick links will take you to answers to these various questions, or you can just scroll down. There's information here about how do I apply. This is where you can get your application materials. So you're going to want, everyone's going to need this budget spreadsheet, and you're going to want either the tier 2 or the micro grant application. And we'll talk a little bit more about which one you want later on. The grant manual is highlighted here for you as well. Again, there's some more information about who is eligible, the types of projects that are eligible, when our applications due. This is going to give you all the dates that you need. So that includes the feedback period. So I offer a feedback period during the month of August, which means before the end of August, you can send me your application materials in draft form, partially completed, fully completed, whatever you have, and I can take a look at those and just give you some information about where your score could potentially be improved and some advice on how you can better have a little bit better chances in this competitive grant cycle. Feedback period is not guaranteed to get you an award by any means. This is a pretty competitive opportunity. We have the past 2 years received about 5 times the amount of ask and compared to the funding that we have. So, you know, there is a need for more funding, and I encourage you to remember that next legislative session when there is more funding being considered potentially. But for now, we've got another $250,000 to hand out. So I would encourage you, especially if you're a first-time applicant to this program or if you're new to grant writing, to use that feedback period. And then final applications are due on Friday, October 3rd. Let's see, there's just some more information here. There's some more resources right here, which could be helpful. There's some links to some various resources. You can view an example budget spreadsheet. The webinar was right here, but I'm also going to post the recording right there once we have that all ready and good to go. So that's what the web page looks like. Let's go back to the presentation. One moment, please. Okay. All right, so program priorities. This grant program is intended for some specific audiences. We are looking to serve kids who face access barriers to the outdoors, right? So whether that's from low-income households, or they face social barriers to the outdoors, whatever that may be. Perhaps there's transportation issues or gear, you know, lack of gear, things like that. And we also focus on students who are in danger of academic failure. So audience is a really important and big part of your score and part of this program. So I want you to consider who your audience is for your programming and make sure that it aligns with the program, because that's where you're going to have the best chance in getting some funding. Audience is a large part of your score. It's worth 20 points. So definitely something that you want to pay close attention to. And we measure that in a couple of different ways. There's a section for reporting how many, the percentage of your audience who who qualifies for free or reduced lunch. And so if you're not working like directly with a specific school, if you're working with an area of schools, you can kind of look all of those up and average those. There's a link to do that in the grant manual as well as on the website and the additional resources section, where you can find that information for the areas that you're working with. If you are just kind of working in a general area, you could use the schools closest to you or the schools that you know where most of your audience comes from or attends, use their data. So just do your best. If you have questions about what school you might want to use, what data you might want to use, you can reach out and let me know. And then the other part of the audience question is facing barriers to outdoor access. So again, that asks you to report a percentage. This is probably going to be a bit more subjective. So maybe you can find some specific data. If you can, I would encourage you to around the barriers of your audiences. And then we also have a section in the application asking you to describe what those barriers are and how they impact students' access to the outdoors. All right, grant timeline. So we looked at these dates a little bit, but just here's a really succinct spot where you can find all of the important dates. So the grant applications opened on August 1st. The feedback period runs through August, and after September 1st, beginning September 1st, you can start submitting your applications, but without the opportunity for feedback anymore. And then final applications are due October 3rd, 2025. Application review happens October through November. We'll get into a little bit more about that later. And then projects are selected and award notifications will start being sent in December. And then project implementation should be within the calendar year of 2026. All right, how to apply. So I showed you on the webpage where those application materials are available. Again, you're going to need two things. You're going to need the written application and you're going to need the budget spreadsheet. And we'll look at those. And then there is a specific email address, noergrant@ndor.nv.gov, where I need you to submit those application materials before the deadline on October 3rd. If hard copies are needed, those can be requested and I can mail them to you. Just send me an email, let me know you need those, or give me a call. And that information is on the webpage as well and will be in the slide deck at the end. If you have questions about the NOER grant email, you can send them to this email address, or my email address does not super matter, but applications and for feedback and final applications should be sent to noergrant@ndor.nv.gov. Eligible applicants, so that includes public agencies at the federal, state, county, city, local government level, public, private, and charter schools, nonprofit organizations, tribal governments and organizations, and community-based entities. In terms of eligible programs and costs, so we are, again, looking to engage students in outdoor education and recreation activities. So this is not an exhaustive list of what that can include. It's just kind of giving you an idea of the type of things that we can fund. So backpacking, hiking, hunting, orienteering, school and community gardens. If there is a programming aspect to those, it can't just be materials. There does have to be a programming side because this is a programming grant. Outdoor cooking, mountain biking, rock climbing, we can fund entry fees and use fees, things like that, equipment. We can fund food. We can fund transportation to programming, as long as it is in state or to bordering counties and cities in other states, and as long as your audience is all Nevada kids. We can fund lodging and facility rentals for students, and like chaperones. And we can fund non-motorized boats. We can fund staff time. And then if we look at some of the ineligible costs and programs, that's going to include things like full-on construction projects. The only kind of gray area there is, again, some gardening aspects we can fund. However, we can't fund like full-on construction projects, right? Organized team sports, traditional team sports, we do not fund. So your baseball, soccer, tennis, that sort of thing. This is not the program for that. We cannot fund fundraising events or promotional materials, promotional events. Projects, again, that do not have an outdoor component are ineligible. Any travel out of state, except for those bordering counties and cities, is ineligible. We cannot fund programming that is for out of state students, so it must be for Nevada students. We cannot fund automobiles, vehicles, or motorboats. Also, you cannot get funding if it's already been spent before your agreement begins. So keep that in mind. If you have to pay something before the end of the year, if it's like December and you've already know that you're receiving your award, we could probably make some exceptions there. But ideally, all of the funding should be in all of the spending of funding should be in 2026. And then lastly, we cannot fund religious activities. And I want to pause right there and see if there's any questions so far. If you have a question, you can use the raise hand function, you can put it in the chat, or you can just unmute. So I'll pause for questions. Okay, not seeing anything so far. No worries, we'll have more time for questions later. Oh, here's one in the chat. Okay, when would the funds need to be spent by? So again, spending and programming needs to happen in the calendar year of 2026. There's a little bit of wiggle room in that your contract block would actually end at the end of January 2027. So that's kind of some built-in buffer room, but also can help with like winter programs, right? So if you're doing like some specific like ski, snowboard programming, sometimes it's hard, that you don't know till December, and then you gotta like start right away in January. So there is a little bit of flexibility there. But ideally they should all be spent in 2026. And then, is there a restriction on the percentage of the budget that can be allocated to staff time? There is not. The only restriction in terms of like percentage of budget allocation is in the administration fee or indirect costs. We'll look at that in a bit. But you could do it all for staff time. I will say that if you're doing like tier 2 applications, for $7,500 or more, that the TAC reviews all of those, the Technical Advisory Committee. And generally, I would say that they're not super excited about projects that are 100% staff time. I've been a programmer, and I've been a teacher, and I've been a person applying for grants, and I understand that, you can do programs without transportation. Sometimes you can do them without equipment, but you cannot do them without staff time. So that is an important component. You just gotta, make a really good argument for that. And just know that I'm always advocating for that with the TAC as well. But there is not a specific percentage. All right. Let's get into application requirements. Okay. So let's talk about tier 1 microgrants versus tier 2 grants. So the only really difference between those two is your budget. So anything up to $7,500 is a microgrant application, and anything $7,500 up to $50,000, which is the maximum you can request, will be a tier 2 grant. And so this table kind of shows you some comparison between what that application looks like between the two, and what the kind of requirements are for if you were to receive an award. So match is not required for either a micro grant or a tier 2 grant, but you'll see when we get to it that it does factor into your score. So match is strongly encouraged. Applications, micro grants only require a written report, and it's a little bit more, it's a little bit shorter than the tier 2 application. Tier 2 applications require both a written application and potentially a presentation. So the way the presentations work is that we take the top 15 written scores once the TAC have scored those, and then we ask those top 15 to give presentations, and they narrow it down from there. So you may give a presentation, you may not, and I will let you know that in November before the presentations. Evaluation criteria, again, is a little bit different between the two. We'll get into that. And then in terms of who is evaluating your application, in the microgrants are evaluated internally with NOER staff, and then the tier 2 grants are evaluated by the technical advisory committee. So again, they review all the written applications and then the presentations, and then they submit a recommendation for funding to the NOER administrator, Denise Baronio, who then gives the final okay on awards. And then if you were to receive an award, in terms of like reporting, that's a little bit different between micro grants and tier 2 grants. If you're getting a micro grant, you just are required to submit up to 2 reports. So one at like the halfway mark and one at the final due date. Or if you finish before then just potentially just one. And then tier 2 grants are quarterly reporting. So that would be like a total of 4 reports over the course of a year. I see that somebody said they're not seeing what I'm reading from. Can you guys not see the presentation? Somebody let me know if you can or cannot see the slide. Okay, Mia says they, okay. It may be your own computer then, Swayzine. But we're just looking at a slide deck right now. And I'll send out the slides so you'll have those regardless eventually. And then finally, the difference is, finally with reimbursements, those are typically processed with reports. So again, tier 1 grants are going to be just those biannual reports, and then tier 2 are going to be quarterly. So again, this is a reimbursement based grant program, so you don't get any funding up front. You have to show that the money was spent and what it was spent on in order to then be reimbursed for those activities. So if quarterly reimbursements are a barrier to your organization, we know that, you know, some of the smaller nonprofits and things, they kind of need money flowing a little bit more often than that. So if that is a barrier, please just let me know and talk with us, and we can put together a plan to do them more often if needed. All right, so application requirements. So this is, again, we're going to get into kind of the evaluation criteria of micro grants versus tier 2 grants. So let's look at the applications. Stop sharing this again. And we'll go over to the micro grant application first. Okay. So this is what the beginning of all of the grant applications look like. There's just some basic kind of organization information that we're requesting, first of all. So the name of your school or organization who's applying, a person of contact. Ideally, this should be one person throughout the entire process. So application, reporting, all of that. Address, phone number, email, project name, and then we ask a little bit about your organization and how you would best describe your project or program, what category it may fall into. We ask which Nevada county or counties or tribal lands the students served will be from, and then an estimation of how many Nevada students you'll be able to serve if your project is selected. And then we also ask for the grade levels that your project serves, so whether that's preschool, elementary, middle, or high school, so you can check all that apply. And then this is what I was talking about in terms of like the audience percentage questions, right? So students facing barriers to outdoors, students on a free and reduced lunch. The link is in there to find that percentage of free and reduced lunch students. And then down here on the second page, we start talking about explaining those barriers that your audience faces. So this is again referencing that first percentage, students facing barriers to outdoors. Now please explain what those barriers are and how they impact your students. Next is the organizational overview. So this is where you can tell us a little bit more about your organization. This is a great spot to talk about your history of serving this particular audience, or maybe your history in terms of outdoor recreation and education and what you've been able to accomplish in the community so far. Your history with grants, right? Have you received grants before? Have you had successful relationships with funders in the past? That sort of thing. All right, and then proposed scope of work. This is where we want you to tell us about what you want to do with this funding. So project description, you can put in some specific like outcomes that you're hoping to achieve. So this is where you can really describe your project. There are some word maximums on these. Please try and keep them under 350 words or very close to that, if not. Because there are a lot of applications to review. So that's just for our reviewers to make it a manageable task. And then that's pretty much it for the microgrant application. You have to attach your budget, which we'll look at, and sign it. Please do remember to sign and date your application. But that's all that's required for the microgrant. So just kind of basic information, contact information, organizational overview, audience, and scope is really all that there is. And then next, let's look at the Tier 2 application. So this one starts out just the same. It's got the same applicant information section, the same audience questions, organizational overview is the same, scope is the same, and then where you have to do a little bit more is the program impacts. Oh, Debbie asks, can the signer be different from the contact information? Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, as long as if you have, a specific person within your organization who needs to sign these, but they're not going to be like the point of contact, they can be different. That's totally fine. So program impacts. So this is again just for Tier 2 applications. We ask you to choose from these 9 program impacts that these are all potential impacts that we've identified as proven impacts of outdoor education or recreation. So you're going to pick 5 of these, and you're going to use the boxes below. There are 5 boxes, and you do need to do all of them. Pick the 5 that your program and your organization are going to best implement, right? So maybe your program focuses on physical health and connecting students with nature and environmental literacy and academic success and self-confidence. But you don't really get into cultural education or community involvement or fostering stewardship, right? So pick the 5 that are going to work best for you, and then you're going to describe how the program is going to achieve that program impact, if you have a history, if you've measured these impacts in the past, or just address how you're able to implement those impacts through the programming, or how you anticipate being able to do that. So those 5 program impacts, we'll look at some examples of those. And then that's the end of the Tier 2 application. So let's go back now to the slideshow. All right. And then of course, the tier two applications. If you're in the top 15 written applications, then you will also be asked to give a presentation to the TAC. But that is not going to be required at all for microgrants. So let's look a little bit closer at program impacts. So the grant manual has some general definitions of these different program impacts. So for example, it says self-confidence programs may teach to markers of social emotional learning or provide opportunities for leadership, self-reflection, growth, independence, or setting and pursuing personal goals. Or in the case of connecting students with nature, nature connectedness happens when individuals feel they belong in and are a part of nature. To build this connection, programs may provide significant themes, or sorry, significant time in or sensory interaction with the outdoors, focus on forming social connections or facilitating positive experiences and moods in nature, or provide learning about Nevada's nature. These are not exhaustive definitions. They're just kind of to help point you toward the program impacts that your program can best implement, and give you some things to talk to within those definitions for your program impact written responses. So again, they're not exhaustive. If you have another definition you want to use, please just like provide some context for that, and please do use it. Okay, let's look at the budget spreadsheet. So this is a example budget spreadsheet here on the screen. And this is for a fictitious project that I made up called Kids in the Park Day with an organization called Nature Rocks, just to give you an idea of kind of what what you can do with this budget spreadsheet. So there are 5 tasks listed in the budget spreadsheet. If you need more than 5, you can add another section. But please note that there are some built-in equations in the spreadsheet. So if you're adding or subtracting things, just make sure that you're not messing with those, or if you need to mess them to add another section or something like that, make sure that everything is included. Can you enlarge? I cannot enlarge this. I'm sorry. I can't zoom in on the slideshow. But again, this is on the website, and I'll send out the deck as well. We could here. Let's maybe look at it in Excel. That might help. Okay. Okay, so this should be a little bit larger, hopefully. So this is an example of task 1 being labor, and it describes the staff member or position that you're funding and what they are going to contribute to the project. You've got your title of that person, you've got their hours anticipated to contribute to the project, and their rate, hourly rate. And then over here on the right, so this is like the total of like what that will cost for the project to have nature leaders facilitate programming. It's going to cost a total of $460, right? And then maybe that is split up into match and NOER share, right? So NOER share, that's the funding that you're requesting. That's the funding that if you were to get an award, you would receive reimbursement for. And then match is additional funding that you're going to provide. So maybe that's just, from your general fund. Maybe you have another grant program that's going to help provide some of the funding for this program. Or maybe you've received some donations and it's going to come from your donation fund. You'll notice right here that it says match source is another grant, and it is secured. So we do need to know what those match sources are and if they are either secured or unsecured. So please note that in each section where you're including match. Down here, maybe task 2 is transportation. Maybe you're busing kids to the park from their schools, and that's going to cost $400, and we're going to split that between NOER costs and match as well. And again, we can use some of that other grant that we have secured to pay for that transportation. Maybe another task might be materials. So maybe you need some journals and some magnifying glasses and some game supplies and snacks. And maybe, you're paying for the game supplies, or you already have game supplies that you can contribute the value of in terms of match. And then some things you need to purchase. And so you're going to request some funding for that. Match does not have to be like money spent. It can also be like volunteer hours. So there's a way to calculate, there's a link in the grant manual to calculate the value of volunteer hours. So if you're like, oh, we anticipate chaperones contributing 20 hours of volunteer time, and we're going to multiply that by the rate of volunteers, which is, I think it's $34 or $35 or something per hour. And so we can track those hours and then show that that value has been added. Or maybe you already have dedicated staff that are going to contribute to the project and you just need materials, and so you can do all the staff time as match and just provide pay stubs as evidence of that. So it really just kind of depends on what you need. And then subcontractors, maybe you're bringing in some help to help with a program, or you're going to a camp where you have to pay for registration fees or facility rentals, something like that. So there's some section here for them as well. And again, these are my own tasks. Maybe yours are a little bit different. That's fine. These aren't filled out for you already. This is just like, again, just an example. And then down here at the bottom, all of this should be added up for you if you've entered it correctly in the sections above. And it'll tell us, okay, the total project cost is going to be, $870. And we're, sorry, you're going to be requesting a total of $870. And then you're also going to be matching that with $970. And then you're also adding on potentially an administration fee. Administration fees, again, that's indirect costs. That's things like rent and internet and water bills, electricity bills, whatever that sort of thing is. And that does cap at 10%. So you don't have to include an administration fee if you want to spend all of your funding on direct costs. You can do that, or you can, if you like, include an indirect administration fee of up to 10% of your total project costs. So we're requesting $870, so we can request another $87 in administration costs, bringing the total request to $957. And then with the match, that's going to come to a total of $1,927 for the project cost. You'll notice that the match is a little bit more than the NOER contribution. That is on purpose, because that is the way you're going to get the maximum amount of points on your budget, is by having match that's at least 51% of the total project cost. Let's see, another question. Can the staff member donate the money back to the organization? I'm not sure I understand that question. Swayzine, can you potentially unmute and tell me more about that?
Well, what I was thinking is that our organization is volunteer, but we have people that work exclusively on this, and it takes up a lot of their time. So if we try to figure out how much their time is worth and we ask for a match, and then you actually give us something, can they donate it back to the organization, or is that not allowable?
Volunteer hours you would not get any funding for.
Okay,
if that's what you mean.
So then they would have to be paid staff members in order for you to reimburse us.
Yes, for labor. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay, and then Bailey asked, we need to see invoices, receipts for the admin expenses when requesting reimbursement. No, so admin expenses are the only thing that doesn't require documentation. I will say that is for now. Sometimes that things change at the state. But for now, that has not been required in the past. All right, I'm going to pull up the slideshow once again. Oh, and then Sue, we usually do a 50-50 match. Would we get any more points for providing greater than 50% match? Let's look at that right now, Sue. Okay, so matching funds. Eligible match, again, includes appropriations in cash, donations, in the value of equipment use, staff time, volunteer time, materials and services, or potentially other grants, or just general budget. Things that are not allowed as match include costs that are double counted. So if you're, if you're including a cost, if this is a cost from another project that does not necessarily relate to this project, we can't include that as match. Anything considered an ineligible cost or activity. So again, motorboats, vehicles, the purchase of vehicles, I should say, or like insurance and things like that, we can't pay for. We can pay for like transportation, so we can pay for gas, we can pay for mileage reimbursement, or contracting a bus or something like that. But anything that's ineligible, like purchasing a vehicle or religious activities, will not be allowed as match. Costs that are not necessary or integral part of the project scope as well. So on here, you can see, hopefully it looks a little bit small, but hopefully you can see how the match points work out. So if you have no match, your project is still eligible, but you're only going to get 1 point in the match section. If your match is less than 1-to-1, so 50-50, but it's unsecured, so you're not totally sure you have like this other grant funding yet, or you're not totally sure you're going to be able to provide the staff time or whatever it may be, that's 2 points. If it's still less than 50% of the project cost, but it is secure, so you know that you've already received these funds, or you know you're going to be able to provide the staff time, that is 3 points. 4 points would be if match is at least 50% of the project cost. So to answer your question, Sue, yeah, it just has to be at least 50% of the project cost. So 50-50 and secured would get you the maximum points in terms of match. If anything over 50% does not necessarily help your score, but so if it's both secured match and is at least 50% of the total project cost, then you're going to get the maximum of 5 points. Mary asked, if a vendor supporting the program provides a discount, will that qualify as match? Yes, that can qualify, but you do have to have proof of that discount. So some kind of documentation, some kind of communication with the vendor, showing that they're giving this discount as like a donation or something like that. That can count as match. Okay. All right, so scoring. So this is a breakdown of how your applications are going to be scored and what the different categories are worth. This is in the grant manual as well. This is kind of the more condensed version. There's also a section, a page where it's broken down even further than this, so you can really see like the guidelines for even the subjective scoring of how like the TAC or staff are instructed to score your applications. But this kind of gives you a snapshot of what that looks like. So again, those audience questions are really important. Those are worth 20 points total. Your organizational overview is worth 10 points. Your scope of work, that's going to include your written scope of work, and your grant history is worth a total of 20 points. Grant history just has to do with whether or not you've received a NOER award in the past. So if you've received like 1 to 2 or more, there might be a point or two deducted there if you've received 2 or more, and those projects have like not been successful or were terminated, or there were issues along the way that were not resolved or were difficult to resolve, then there may be some more points deducted there. If you're a new applicant and you've never received an award, you automatically get those full 5 points. And then budget. So your overall budget, that budget spreadsheet, as long as it is, specific and requested funding is detailed and reasonable, you're going to get 10 points there. And then there's another 5 points for match possible. And then amount per child. So this is just, this is based on how you stack up against other applications this year. So I will compare all of the applications in microgrants and then all the applications in tier 2 to the other ones in those categories. And if you're in the lowest third of cost per child, then you get up to 4 points. If you're the absolute lowest cost per child, you can get all 5, and kind of goes down from there. So if you're doing a micro grant application, that's all of your scores. So it's only going to be out of 70 possible points, because it's just going to include audience, organizational overview, scope, and budget. If you're applying for a tier 2 grant, your program impacts will also be worth 6 points each. So those are, again, there's 5 of those for a total of 30 points. All right, post-application process. We just got a couple more slides here, Sue, and then I'm gonna, we'll get to questions in just a moment. Okay, so post-application process. So again, if you're a tier 2 applicant, presentations are going to be Thursday, November 13th. So please save that date now. They will be either in person in Carson City at the DCNR building, the Bryan building, or they can be virtual, whatever works best for you. But they will be that day, and it's really just a week's notice because the TAC has to have time to review all the written applications. And so I will let you know a week before if you're presenting or not, and you'll select a time slot on that day of November 13th. But if you're planning on a tier 2 presentation, please save that date for now and keep it open. Again, final selection notification will be December 2025, and project implementation will be 2026. And then a little bit of information about what to expect if you are chosen, if your project is chosen to receive a NOER award. So again, we went over kind of the reporting requirements of tier 2 versus micro grant reporting. That's both like a project update and a request for reimbursement. The request for reimbursement, I do want to just warn everybody that they are, it's some pretty robust reporting requirements in terms of the budget, right? So if you haven't received government funding in the past, it might feel a little burdensome, right? It's generally not like like a foundation grant where, they just like kind of give you $10,000 and say, yes, spend it on those things you said you're going to spend it on. And then you say, yes, we did it. It's a lot more involved than that. So you're going to have to track all of your spending for both reimbursement and match. So proof of funds are going to include things like paid invoices, receipts, tracking staff time, pay stubs, proof of payment, that sort of thing. I would encourage you not to include crazy amounts of match unless you want to track all of that, right? So again, if it's over 50% of the project, you're not going to get any more points score-wise anyway. So, if you're only asking for $10,000, I would not recommend making your total project cost $200,000 because you're still going to be accountable for those other $190,000 via match. Let's see. And then there's also just some reporting metrics that we ask you to track throughout your programming. So things like number of students and like grade level of those students, or whether they're elementary, middle, high school, preschool. The number of hours students spend outside, programming locations, jobs supported, that sort of thing. And then we also ask for some photos. It's also likely, we haven't done this in the past, but if you do receive an award, you're probably going to be required to attend a reporting training. Also, just keep in mind reporting, fiscal reporting in particular, is like subject to change. Those things are outside of my control. It's up to the state and it's up to my own department's fiscal team what they require for certain things as proof in order to be reimbursed. So just know that sometimes that's a little bit of a moving target. All right, finally, additional resources I just want to direct you to if you need more help with this. First off is the grant manual. Again, that's your North Star. You want to make sure that you read the grant manual, and if you have questions, go check there first. It's a great resource. Should be able to answer most of your questions. Again, I pointed out on the website those award summaries and the dashboard that can help you, again, get an idea of the types of projects that have received funding in the past. And then I also want to tell you about the Office of Federal Assistance. They're a state office that provides like trainings on grants. So if you're new to grant writing, they have like a Grants 101 training series. Some of it is more specific to federal grants, which wouldn't apply here. But there are some trainings just on like general grant writing, understanding the resources they have available through the office. They have a bunch of recorded trainings so you can watch them on your own time. So I'd recommend those as well. That's at ofa.nv.gov. All right, and with that, we've got another 7 minutes, so let's get into questions. I saw Sue had their hand up. Sue, do you want to go ahead and unmute? Maybe. Oh, Sue put a question in the chat. Our cost per student is higher because most programs are multi-day overnight, yielding many more student program days than students. Can that be taken into consideration for cost per student? It's not for that specific scoring metric, but it is going to be taken into consideration generally in your overall score, I would say. But it's, it's only like a potential 5 points. Sometimes it just is what it is. All right, and then other questions. Let's see. Oh, I didn't need to raise my hand. Any other questions? You can put in the chat or you can unmute and ask. Not hearing any questions. Not seeing anything else in the chat.
Hey, Kendall. Sorry, I was looking for my buttons.
Go ahead.
It's Bailey from Chill.
Hi, Bailey.
For reporting, like you said that we can use like our general funds as match dollars. Is that right?
As long as they're being contributed to the project itself, yeah.
Okay. And so reporting on those sorts of things, we would just need to show you like timesheets or invoices for whatever those dollars were spent on. Is that right?
Yeah, it's just you to be able to prove that money was spent, right? So, and what it was spent on. But that's true for everything, right? That's true for reimbursement and match. So if you have like QuickBook reports, those can work. Or yeah, just tracking like, oh, staff spent this amount of time working on this specific project, over these dates. And here's the value of that, and show that you, and be able to prove that you paid them, right? So
Okay.
yeah, so
And
it boils down to like what was the money spent on, and proof that the money was actually spent.
okay. And when you all calculate cost per participant, are you using the total program cost, including match, or just the request amount from NOER?
Just the request amount. Yep.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Other questions? Can some items for winter clothing, such as mittens, hats, socks, be reimbursed? Yeah, that would, I think, qualify as equipment. Those are definitely reimbursed costs if you're purchasing them, like for participants.
Kendall, this is Hillary. I have a question. So if we have, it's more of a match question. If we have supplies that we were able to get from a federal grant that will be applied and given out bus grant participants, would that be considered a match, the cost associated with that if we've obtained them in 2025 as opposed to 2026?
Sorry, I think you cut out. Can you say that first part again?
Sure. We have some supplies that we were able to purchase for our bus grant participants for this
Okay.
upcoming year. But we've already purchased them in 2025, but they will apply for the upcoming school year, the next 2 school years. Would that be considered a match, or would the funds have to have been from 2026?
Like equipment use is an eligible match. So it's like if you've already got equipment that you're using, you can like. I haven't really had people do it so far, honestly, but you can calculate the value of like the use of that equipment.
It's not equipment, it's actually supplies for the field
Okay.
trips. So it's binoculars and
Okay.
little backpacks and some little educational booklets that we've created.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Yeah. That should be
it's
fine.
okay if we spent the money on them this year.
Yeah, match, there's a little bit more flexibility in terms of like spending on those, as long as it's, for the project being implemented in 2026 and you can show that documentation for money spent, that should be fine.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any others. So again, this is my contact information, my phone number, my email, and let me know if more questions come up. Again, applications are due October 3rd. It's a Friday, first Friday in October. So I'm excited to see what projects you guys have going on, and please let me know how I can support you through the application process. I will send out the webinar recording link, and it will also be posted on the NOER grant webpage. That probably won't happen until next week, but I'll send you an email when it is ready. And otherwise, thanks everybody so much for being here, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.